Good evening. Welcome, everybody. If you're just signing into Zoom, we welcome each and every one of you. We're just thrilled to have you back. Or if you're new to our webinars, we're just thrilled that you're joining us tonight. We're going to just wait a little bit. We have some chats here starting. So I want to welcome everyone to Sensory Play Learning Through Discovery. Is there somewhere we can sign in? Okay, let me just see here. So at the bottom of your screen, for those who have just joined us, there is a place where you can, there's a bubble that says chat. I want you to click on that, and there will be a webinar chat panel that will come in. And that's where you can put all panelists, or you can put all panelists and attendees. So then everybody that's participating can see what you're saying, and you can ask questions. So if it's something private, you can turn that off. So that's where you say, it says to, and then you can choose that. And then type your message in there. So as people are signing in, please let us know where you're from. Let us know, what ages your children are that you care for, that are in your life. Let us know. Let me see here. For local, I've got someone here in Oxford County, London. Here I see someone works with toddlers. Hello from Windsor. Excellent. Hi, everybody. Sudbury, Edmonton, Alberta. 100 voices. That's awesome. So we have 100 voices in kindergarten. That's awesome. Pre-kindergarten. Welcome, Dutton, Waterdown, Sudbury, Calgary, Alberta, Bowmanville. Welcome, everybody. Hamilton, Port Perry, Ottawa, Toronto, Quebec, Manitoba. Okay, so Canada, you are definitely joining us tonight.
Well, we were at MCCAA, so give them a big shout out.
MCCA?
Yes.
Welcome, everybody. We're so happy you're here. I can't wait to introduce you to Julie if you have not met her yet. So a couple things I need to go through with you, okay? We have some giveaways tonight. I have 5 special giveaways, and depending on what the ages of the children in your life are, Julie and I are going to personally choose product for you. So make sure that if you're the one chosen, now you ask, how do I get chosen? How do I win? So what I need you to do is a couple things. I need you to engage with us. I want you to ask questions throughout the chat. I'd love for you to participate in our polls throughout the whole webinar, and ultimately stay with us right to the end, okay? So you can see, I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have some musical instruments, some foam, some slime. I've got a slime factory. These may not be the products that we specially pick out for you, but it may be something similar. Okay, so before we begin, I'm also going to ask you that you make your screen, there's settings in your screen. So have some fun right now in the next couple minutes to decide how you want your screen. If you like the presenter, Julie, to be large on your screen, there's ways to go into your Zoom to make the actual presentation, slides, larger, smaller. We're gonna have some fun interacting. Julie has some great things happening tonight for you. We hope that you brought some maybe some product with you. I know that Julie had some suggestions in the emails that she's been sending out. So we're just excited you're here. Hi, everybody. We have some from Guelph and Ajax. Oh, Julie, you just wait. You've got Canada here. We've got Edmonton. So it's going to be just super fun.
Do you want to just review the list one more time in case they have a chance to run out and get some things in their kitchen?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Okay, so Julie has a great suggestion. Let's just see if you have time to go to your kitchen and bring some things with you so you can interact with her and do some experiments. So she has some water and some ice cubes. She's got some cornstarch. She's got some baking soda. She has some vinegar. She's got some cinnamon and sugar, some soap here. So it's like whatever you have. She also has some food coloring here. If you have it, go into your kitchen. If your children are all tucked in, that's why we made our webinar a little later, so that you can tuck in the little ones and join us for the evening. So I think that's good. You know what? I'm going to just give it to Julie. I'm going to introduce her. Julie Bellarbach is our Vice President of Sales for Scholars Choice. She trains early child educators and teachers throughout Canada. And it is something that is her passion for over 20 years that she has been involved with early learning. Julie brings a wealth of education, conversations, and practical ideas. And I know she is just super excited to be here with you tonight. So without any further ado, I welcome Julie. Ah, yay! Clap, clap, clap.
Oh, Jen, you're great. Thank you so much. Jen certainly makes me feel welcome, and welcome to all of you. It is so great to be here with you this evening. I have to say, I started off my day today in Windsor, Ontario, with a great group of directors, and we were talking about outdoor play. We were talking about provocations, loose parts, and it was really a great day. So if any of you joined us this evening after our talk this morning, thank you, or this afternoon, I should say, thank you and welcome. Welcome to all of you. It's great to see that there's so many of you from across the country. And tonight we're going to attempt to try something a little bit different. We're actually going to be doing more about sensory experiences. And I think that it's going to be an awful lot of fun tonight. Katie, I just see that there's a screen up on the screen that needs to be removed so that I can see the presentation. And if you could take that down for me, we can get going. I need to put my glasses on so I could see what it is that we are working on. So we're going to talk about sensory play and why is sensory play so important? And what does sensory play bring to the learning experience of the child? So when we think about sensory play, I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulty, but I am going to be with it in just one moment. There. So we started off this presentation talking about screen time, and this is the fourth of a four-part series. So we started off talking about screen time, and I want to keep connecting us back to that because as we talk about all of these webinars, it was really born out of the idea that children needed to get off screens. And when children need to get off screens, we mean that they need to have very limited amount of screen time. And when they do, it's quality screen time. So let's just see if we can just take a quick look, reminding ourselves of what are the recommended times for children on screen times. Well, babies under 18 months, it's actually no screen time. Absolutely none. And I'm not talking about FaceTime with grandma or nanny, or I'm talking about independent time where they are playing on a screen. I was speaking to a parent a while ago, and it wasn't of an 18-month-old, but it was a little bit older, but not a lot. I'm talking 3, so a toddler. And she said to me that she was amazed at her child's ability to concentrate, how he could be on the screens playing on games for over 6 hours and be content. And, the parent was really proud of that. And it was shocking to me that that is how we were measuring the child's developmental progress. And that we weren't saying, can he run? Can he jump? Can he skip? What are his language skills like? What are his cognitive skills like? What are his social emotional skills like? But we were celebrating how much time he could independently, solitarily play. For a toddler. So I want you to think about that as we go through. Children 2 and under, 42 minutes a day. 2 years, kids under 2, so over 18 months and under 2, 42 minutes a day of quality programming. That is not vampire high, and I know it's a challenge, and I get it. But what I really witness is, when I say to children, no screen time, and the real only time I'm exposed to children in screen time is not in nurseries or in educational settings, but in my own home when my grandchildren visit. And I just say, I'm sorry, there's just no screen time. And there's always pushback and, Nanny is our favorite show. We really like it. And as soon as we start to take out a game, or we take out some loose parts, we take some toys out, we structure them out. If I'm really organized, I actually have a provocation learning opportunity for them set up. There is very little pushback that lasts, and eventually, after a few minutes, they're done, they're moving on, they're playing, as they know that it's not going to be a lot of pushback for me. And I value screen time too. I love watching a great Disney movie with the children. It's phenomenal, but it's not in absence of. And this is the biggest thing we need to understand. It's not in the absence of playing. It's in addition to that we still had the quality time of playing, the quality time of learning, and then we were able to sit down together and watch, Beauty and the Beast, which is one of my favorites. Children 2 to 4, 2.5 hours a day, which is not a lot of time, and that would include all screen time. So that would be any time that you would have them watching a program or working on on an iPad. These are all, I know that quite a few parents use this as a tool for driving, because they feel that if they're going to have only 2.5 hours, it really spares them. So they offer an iPad during that time. So that's all included. It's not 2.5 hours multiple times a day. Kids 5 to 8, right around 3 hours a day of screen time that they can have. But remember, that still is then how many hours of non-screen time. And if the child is in school and there's screens there, you need to think about and consider that to be added on. So that's screen time. So that's how we started these webinars, and that we wanted to remove children from screen time and really take back their childhood. And now let's take a look at how the child learns. So the playful learning approach is how Scholar's Choice looks at the child, how the child learns, and how the child best experiences life in order to be successful at learning. So children need to self-direct their own play. So mom and dad, or if you're an educator out there, there is a great draw to try and tell child how to play with something. Oh, no, do it this way, or this is a better way. You know what? There isn't a better way. The best way is what the child is thinking in their mind. That is the best way to play with any toy. So children need to self-direct their own play. When they're self-directing their own play, children are moving along with their knowledge base. They are learning as they go. When we try and reconstruct that play, we're taking away from them the opportunity to discover and learn. And when we take away from a child the opportunity to discover and learn for themselves, we forever rob them of that experience. And so we want children to really lead and self-direct their own play. Children develop social and emotional skills through collaborative play. We talked about this in another webinar. Collaborative play, however, I love cooperative games. They're great, and it is a great way for children to learn social emotional skills through that type of gameplay. However, it is not the only way. Anytime a child is with other children, working out how things are done, I tell everyone who comes to nursery, every child's going to get a shove and every child's going to get a little nibble. And that's children working out how to resolve conflict, how to manage their emotions, which is one of the most important things that young children are learning to do. So we need to really give them that breath and give them the opportunity to be exposed to social, emotional situations where other children are there, and step back. We don't want to step back too far that anyone gets harmed, but we want to step back far enough that we allow children to solve challenges themselves. I see Jen, who I don't know if we shared with you before, but Jen also was a director for many, many years of very, very large centers. And so she absolutely is remembering all the conversations about the little nibbles that the children and her parents had to talk about. Children explore with all five senses, and this is where tonight is really going to be focused. So I won't spend too much time on it right now, but we're going to really focus in on that one in just a few minutes. Children need to have endless opportunities to discover, and we need to give children endless opportunities to support discovery-based learning. And I touched on that a little bit earlier when we allowed children to self-direct their own play. This is how I want to play. But when children discover, and discovery-based learning is really what we're going to talk about tonight with experiments. When I'm outside and I'm walking through the woods and I'm discovering the path and I'm looking at leaves and I'm beginning to discover that all the leaves are not the same. They're different. Are all the greens the same? You can pose questions to children, but don't give them the answers. Don't say, oh, did you notice all the leaves are different colors? Allow them that opportunity to discover that. You can always be the more knowledgeable other or the adult in this scenario and ask questions, but make sure your questions are not answers and not 100 questions, but questions that may spur the child on to the next level of learning and discovery. Children are given endless opportunities to express themselves. And what we see is with so much screen time, children are not speaking as much. And we see a lot of comprehension, which is really good, but we actually see brain development. When we look at MRIs, we actually see the child who is spending an exorbitant amount of time on screens, that there's actually a change in their brain development and how they're learning, and particularly their language. And social emotional skills, of course. So when we look at this, sorry, I just have an itchy nose and I apologize. I think it's because I have cinnamon and I have all of these great things in front of me here. But children need to be given endless opportunities to express themselves. And by doing that, we develop their language. I was with a group of teachers this morning or this afternoon, and we were talking about, when you set up a small world, for children to explore. And then you give them the opportunity to tell you what it is they did. And initially, they might not be great at it. And your own child might not be great at it. You might be thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, I can't bear listening to them. They stumble over their words. They're not very clear. It's a challenge to understand them. And I just want to finish the sentences for them. Really resist that urge. Let them stumble through, and then afterwards tell them how much you enjoyed listening to them. Tell them how much that you enjoyed their thoughts. What you'll find is the child will gain more confidence and then move on to better and better speech. But remember the first time you ever tried something? As an adult, what might be something that you might have tried? Perhaps you learned to ski as an adult. Were you great at the beginning? Did you fall a lot? Did you stumble? Were you a little bit awkward? These are the things that we have to remember. And now we're just babies. We're just little 3-year-olds. We're 4-year-olds. And we're struggling at lots of things that we're learning. And speech is one of them. And we really need a lot of confidence and support in order to be successful with it. So children need endless opportunities to express themselves. And we need to give that to children and not fill that silence with our own voice, but allow the silence to sit until the child can fill it with their voice. Why is sensory play important? Let's move on to the topic of tonight, sensory play. Why is it important? Well, from birth, children make use of their senses and try to understand the world around them. That is innate in who we are. And this is really, I was interesting just before this, I was just reading an article on math and thinking about that would be a great webinar in the future is talking about math and how we might use math in our homes and early learning math. But so I was reading this article on math, and they were talking about how children at birth begin to understand the notion of mathematics through just the order of their day, the order of the world, and how they do that is by their senses. They begin to understand their first sense of touch. Their sight is very poor at the beginning, but it does develop, and this is how they begin to make sense of the world. Even adults learn best when their senses are engaged. So we talked about this in a previous webinar. I'm just going to review it one more time with you. I apologize if you feel I'm repeating myself, but I think it's really important. We learn through our senses. You do and I do. All adults do and all children do. All children of all ages do. There are 5 doors to our brain, and only 5 doors to our brain. And the 5 doors are our senses. They are the senses that we use. And these doors are how our brain processes information, takes it in. So this is why sensory play is just so incredibly important. Allowing children to explore their senses is essential for several areas of development. And let's take a look at what that is. Helping build nerve connections in the brain. The brain is like a vine, and as it makes connections, it sprouts new vines off of the main base. And when the child has the opportunity to build more connections, the stronger the connections, then we begin to have a superhighway. So when you see a child very young first learn to pick up something, they pick it up, they might struggle with it, they drop it, and their hands are not under their complete control, but they're beginning to make the connections in their brain. How do I make my hand work? Then the more they make it work, it becomes a superhighway. Then you're dodging and darting because they're able to throw things at you. But it is so important that we understand that it is through our senses that we begin to develop those nerve connections. Support language development and social skills. This is essential for all areas of development. Developing reasoning and problem solving. Allowing children to explore with their senses allows them to develop reasoning and problem solving. This is really, we talk about needing the disposition of learning in our previous webinars, and how that's really what we want for our children, is to have that disposition of curiosity and learning. And how do we create that? By giving them endless opportunities to direct their own play, to discovery-based learning, and we do that through allowing them to have sensory play. For those of you who are parents that are with us or caregivers, you might notice that when you go into early years rooms and grade JKK rooms, that you always see a water bin or a sensory bin. It's because what we know is that the more we allow children to experience with their senses, the more they're going to learn. We know that the senses allow us to read or to define our motor skills. Because the feeling of touch allows us to understand how hard it is we're touching something, when we're grasping, when our fingers are together. These are all, really, really defining our motor skills. And we were talking this afternoon about, a child learning to print. We think that, oh, let's just give them a pen and they should be able to learn how to hold it. And then I was witnessing some children last week trying to write like this, and you really can see that, first it has to be about the core, then the shoulder development, then the muscle development, right down to that nice L-shaped arch that has to happen. So really defining those motor skills through sensory play. Calm and soothe anxious and frustrated children. I was at MCCAA last week, and we had this water table set up, and we had these fabulous reflective balls in it. And as we poured the water over them, it was so soothing. I just can't even tell you how many teachers we had come and kneel down and just pour the water over these balls. It is very soothing and calming to explore with our senses. And so we know that a lot of us may have even had these apps on our phone that allow us to listen to rain, and these are all exposing our senses, and they calm us down. So you know when in conflict with the child, don't go higher. If they yell, go lower. Lower your voice, make yourself quiet, make it so they have to stop and listen to you because they really can't hear, and you'll find that they'll calm with you. And even taking them to an opportunity to play with water really helps a child to calm down and to gather their thoughts. It improves our memory. We're going to talk a lot more about Dale's cone of learning in just a little bit, and we're going to show you how it improves your memory. But it really does. The more senses that are exposed to us during a learning opportunity, or the more senses that we have that are engaged during a learning experience, the more our memory kicks in, because those doors to the brain are all being opened. We have a large range of resources designed to inspire play in early learning. And one of the things that we really focus on is engaging the senses and making sure that children's sensory play is highly, highly functioning in a classroom, and that when we're playing with children, that we're engaging as many senses as possible. So let's just take a poll quickly. Do you think that children should get dirty during play? You can only imagine the next slide. What do you think? Do you think that children should get dirty when they're playing? So let's just see if you could just give us your tabulation there and chime in. And I'll just wait for the cue from our team who is reading all of your emails right now when we're done. And then we'll get the results from our poll. What are people saying, Jen?
Okay, let's see here. It looks like 73% says the more dirt, the better. We've got 19% that thinks it depends on the kind of play, Julie. 8% thinks a little bit of dirt is okay, and 0% says absolutely none.
Well, congratulations. That is great. That is a great poll. It's wonderful to see. Now, some of you might not just be as enthralled with this picture as I am, but in this picture, we see children. Look at the little boy at the bottom of the slide. He's just hitting that puddle of mud, and look how clever he is. He's probably done this a few times, and the first few times the puddle of mud went in his face, and now he's raising his head up because what happened? He learned how to. The little boy behind him, he's trying something different, and all of these children are engaged. They're soaking wet. It's pouring rain, and it's important for you to see in this picture the child to, I guess your left, my left, in the little blue slicker there with her, I think, bare feet. I don't think those are wellies. And she is observing. And we need that to be okay too when children are playing. That there is the child who likes to observe. You know, in 10 minutes, she might be totally engrossed in that play. She might never be, or he might never be, but it's okay. Each of us need to be able to feel free to experience sensory play in whatever fashion we want. This is why we call it child-led play. We're not telling her you have to go down this slide. We're not telling you you must take off your coat in order to experience the rain. We are allowing her to experience all of this wonderful sensory experience that's happening on her own terms. So she is, or he is, just loving to watch and still out in the rain. So congratulations for them. But this is truly a phenomenal sensory experience. So let's just review quickly what all the 5 senses are. The humans have 5 senses, as we all know. We have sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. The sensory organs associated with each sense send information to our brain and help us to perceive and understand the world around us. When we hear a loud noise, we've heard that noise before, a particular noise, it might frighten us because somehow in the past when we heard that noise, we processed that we were anxious or afraid. And this is why as children get older, sometimes we have anxieties around certain sounds, certain smells, certain feels. Sometimes people touch things and they go, "Ooh, no, I hate that feeling." We have to sometimes think, well, how did that originally go into them? How did that information originally get processed? Was it a positive experience or not? I know that a lot of us do not love mini beasts, which are bugs, but mini beasts sounds so much better. And these little mini beasts that live in our world and all around us all the time could be called spiders or ants or bees. Many children are afraid of them. And often I think it's because we've passed that along to them. So I like to put bugs and things out in trays. And even if they're plastic bugs to start with, just to get them used to the look, the feel, it's strange, it's different. But once they get exposed to it and they realize that there's nothing to be afraid of, then they're better able to cope with these mini beasts in the real world. So these are the 5 senses, and it is these senses how we process the world. So let's just take a look at some of the types of play that would be considered sensory play. So this is water play. Now, sometimes we think about water play as sprinklers and swimming in pools, and which it is, absolutely. But I want you to take a look at this play, because this water play, children are actually discovering gravity. They are discovering volume at the end. They are looking at the movement and the capacity of the containers for which are holding it, or the one in which they're pouring it. And we really are igniting many, many, many interesting learning opportunities for them. They can adjust the different troughs in different angles in order to make sure that they're caught by or not caught by the container at the bottom. So this is water play. So I really encourage you as if you have centers that you're working with to just have water everywhere. I mean, I could never have enough water. I just think water is amazing. It should be involved in so many activities and learning environments. But at home, think about it too, how you might create these. Sometimes I just take just a board and I put it up high and I pour water down it and just watch the path that it takes along the board, adjusting the board to see if I can get the water all the way to the bottom. This is me playing on my own at a conference. So I can only imagine what a child's imagination would do, because their imagination is far, far greater than mine, I'm sure. So the value of sand and water play. And I did want to mention to you, you should see how this play turns when you put a little mud with it and then you get slurry, not just water. Oh, it's fabulous, because then you can pick it up, you can hold it in your hands, you can mold it, you can touch it. You know, we've all read Going on a Bear Hunt, and in that book it talks to us about squelchy, the word squelchy. And because when they're walking through the mud, you cannot know squelchy if you haven't felt mud, slimy, wet mud under your feet or in your hands. And this is what makes these opportunities also so language rich, because you can talk to what it is that the children are experiencing and what they are taking in from their senses when they're having sand and water play. When we take a look at sand and water play, it's a vital aspect for many, many, many early years provisions. It's not only provides countless benefits, but it equally valuable opportunities for exploration. You know, I mentioned a few, but children could just come up with 100 ways to set up those troughs and the water. And they might even just go off on their own and carry their own little bucket with a small vessel and figure out how they can transfer. We've talked about schemas on our webinars, and transference is a schema that children need to work on a lot. Moving water from one container to the other, figuring out volume, capacity, how many buckets can I use to fill that? And even if that language isn't there to start with, it's interesting how they begin to understand the actual concepts. And then as adults, if we can give language to that, I love how you're working on that capacity. What do you think the volume of that container is? That really helps again. And we talked about the importance of endless opportunities to express themselves. So we need to give children rich language. we could do digging, scooping, shoveling, pouring, mixing. All of these things are so important. At the end, if the great big bucket, you could put sand in that, and then children could be stirring it, mixing it. So there's lots. I think I'm getting a signal. I'm talking a little bit too much here. Sand play, we talked a little bit about it, but think about what else you could put into that container. You could put rice, you could put lentils, ice. I love ice. You know, we talked about mini beasts a minute ago. Could you imagine if in your freezer you froze little bugs in all of the ice cubes and then put them out in the tray? Oh my goodness, wouldn't that just be fun? So fun. You could use foam. I know that many centers would not be able to put shaving cream out, but at home you should give it a whirl. Try it as an opportunity of just play. Make sure you're supervising. You know, you don't want the children eating it. Would certainly make their tummies sore if they did. But if you've got preschoolers who are ready for that, it really is fun. And then if you can put some watercolor in that, oh my goodness, it's amazing. Balloons. What about if you filled balloons with water or just balloons with air and put them in there? See if you could push the balloon under the water. Well, why can't you? Why doesn't the balloon go into the water? Slime. Oh my goodness, Scholar's Choice. We are experts on slime, I'm telling you. And slime in that a different texture, move differently than water does or ice. The other thing about ice that's really great is that it melts. And when ice melts, can you put it back to its original form? Well, not without putting it in the freezer. So you could tell, oh, what's happened to, oh my goodness, look what happened to our ice, it melted. Well, how would we get ice back again? And then you might talk about, well, where do we find ice? We find ice in our freezer. We find ice outside in the winter. So what do you think is required for us to make that ice again? Then we could talk it through. We could put it in the freezer the next day. We could take a look and we could see that it's ice again. So how about experiential play? This kind of play truly jazzes me, because it's really, it's what makes the future chemists, the future scientists of the world, allowing them to experiment, allowing them to mix and mash and blend and stir. All of these things are required for children to experiment. They need to know that when they make, if they have mud and they have water, and they, well, not mud, I should say dirt and water, and they mix it together, they get mud. They can't instantly put it back. What if they take the petals off of a flower and put it in like a little mortar and pestle, and they mix it in, and then they smell it and they go, oh, it's so beautiful. But can I put the flowers back on the petals of the flower? These are the things that are so important in experiential play that children discover. And it is in these times that we don't want to tell them how play should happen, but we do want to engage their senses. So having things that have smell, things that they can hear, things that they can see, things that they can touch. These are also very important in learning and discovering. Today's, this is a picture of a mud kitchen. Today's mud kitchen may be a laboratory. Tomorrow it may be a grocery store. The next day it may be the kitchen. But every day it's an opportunity to experiment. And this is what we want. You know, they often say that the person who becomes a scientist is a person who never lost their curiosity. And so I think that that's an interesting perspective of that. So sensory includes many activities that celebrate and stimulate young children's senses. As I said, touch, taste, movement, balance, light, hearing. You know, sometimes we just put a ramp off the side of it and see what can happen. Can the children walk up it? Is it too steep? Do they need to make it lower? There's so many different ideas that they can do. Sensory activities facilitate natural exploration and encourage children to use scientific processes, mixing, blending, volume, capacity. Use words of science. What do you think might happen? What would be our hypothesis if we were to create this, whatever it is that we were going to? We can talk about our hypothesis here in a minute when we do our experiment. But it is when we use real, genuine words that are related to experiments during experiential play that we really give life to the actual process of experimenting. It's really important. And I always say to you, if a child can say Tyrannosaurus Rex or Brontosaurus or all those other fabulous dinosaur names, some of which I struggle to pronounce, then they can certainly understand what hypothesis is if used in the right sentences. So let's just take a poll right now. What play do you think your children will engage with the most? So there's a little list there. And if you would like to just chime in, which play do you think resonates with your children? Sand, water, experiential, which type of play do you think that your children would engage with? If you want to just chime in on that poll. How are we doing, Jen?
We're doing good. We don't have results yet, but they're coming.
20.
Okay. Okay, Julie, we have our polls in. We have 37% answered water play. We have 12% that answered sand play, and 51 said experiential play.
Excellent. That's great. Well, that's fun. Well, we're so glad that those type of play is important to you. Well, I now have my glasses on because we're going to do some experiments and we need to be able to see. So the first one that I want you to do is I want you to take the ice, and I have some ice right here, and I think our camera has switched over, and just Katie, just tell me if you like what you can see here. And I want you to just take the ice in your hand. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to feel what it feels like in your hand. Do you feel the ice beginning to drip? Is it beginning to melt? Do you feel your hands very cold and then almost getting hot? There is your senses when you close your eyes begin to feel. Now move the ice from one hand to the next. Do you feel that it's slippery? Are your hands getting wet as it moves from one hand to the next? These are all your senses engaging when your eyes are closed, and you can really feel that. So how does it feel? Is it different? And ice is something that I think is such an easy thing for us to engage with children. Putting ice out on a tray for them, letting them play with it. And as I said, you could put food color with it. And I actually think I have a little bit of food color right here. And what is really fun, and I'm just going to really start making a mess now, is that watch the ice. Watch what happens as the water goes, as the food color goes onto the ice. It begins to blend. It makes these fabulous, fabulous veins in the ice. So we can talk about what it is we see. What happens to the color? Does it get brighter? Does it get duller? Does it mix? Do we start to have pools of water on the table? All of these things are opportunities for children. And we could open up another color and mix, and then what would happen? Would we change the color? Jen, if we added yellow to this blue, what would happen if we were to add yellow to the blue? What do you think? Let's just give it a try.
Okay.
All right, what happens when we add the yellow?
Oh.
What's happening, guys? What color are we getting?
And let the children answer. Let's see what they come
What
up
are we
with.
getting? We are getting green when we add blue to yellow. So these to discover experiential play, which so many of you said was so great. Thanks, Jen. Really allowed you to explore, to discover. But you can't just do that with a book. You know, and I love books, but you can't just do that when you tell a child, well, you know what, here's a marker and here's a blue marker and a yellow marker. If you mix them together, you get green. Well, that's one experiment. Now let me see if it happens in anything else. One time we had a child and we were working with this child, and they had shaving foam, and we put it in a Ziploc bag, and we put in there blue and yellow, and all the children had a chance to mix it together. And what we were showing them is color mixing. So they got green. Then we were doing trays, and we were saying, you know, go get other things in the room that are green, and we were just discovering green. Are all the, you know, colors of the leaves, are they the same? The children would say, yes, they're all green, but are they all the same? They look a little bit different to me. They're different shades of green. So anyways, the long story short is this little girl came back and she said, I want to do it again. And we said, well, what would you like to do again? She said, I want to do the foam and the colors again. So we put in the blue, we put in the yellow, squish, 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 it's green. This sounds like a Robert Munch book, really it did. She said, I want to do it again. We said, okay, put the foam in the bag, put the blue, put the yellow. I want to do it again. So this went on 10 times, I'm not kidding. And every single time, threw it on the floor, I want to do it again. She wasn't being difficult at all. And you know what she said to us at the end? She said, do you know that every time that you put blue and yellow, it makes green? It never makes red. And we thought, oh my gosh, she got it. She was, through the schema of learning, that she was figuring out that she wanted to prove. So she had a hypothesis that it was going to change. She thought, I think that one of these times it's going to change. But what ended up happening is she disproved her hypothesis, or perhaps her hypothesis was it will always be green. But she was proving that, and we supported her through that. And at the end, she got it. And instead of saying, no, you know, why do you need to do this again? You know it's always going to be green. We would have then robbed her from the experience of discovering for herself. And this is what we don't want to take away from a child. Do you know that little girl, I bet, will know color blending for the rest of her life because she understood it by more than just being told. She felt it, she experienced it, she heard it. She experienced through experiential play the actual, Jen's thinking that I'm going to run out of time here. So anyways, the next one, baking soda. How many of us have ever done this experiment before? So here's a little bit of baking soda. And what's going to happen when we add a little bit of vinegar? Wow. I mean, I'm telling you, you show this to preschoolers, they are just out of their mind with excitement. Now, watch what happens when we add a little bit of color to it. And then we add a little bit more baking soda. And we add a little bit more. And then, whoa! And it overflows. How exciting is this? Showing children that when you mix two things together, you can get yet a third property. And the third property can be nothing like the first two. We had vinegar, we had baking soda, and together we combined them and we made a third entity, of which was exciting, and it had movement, and it was fun. So this is one I challenge you to do with young children. It's so easy. Get your cookie tray out, make it happen, add some color, and it is so, so fun. Oh, I forgot to change my slide. I'm sorry. We were just too busy. See what happens when children are having fun? They are busy, and we could all say that I would be very childlike. The fizzing produces brilliant fun. The children will watch, and then they will do this over and over again. And it doesn't take a lot. It's something that you have in your home. A little bit of baking soda, a little bit of vinegar. Whoa! And it is exciting. And this is one that they'll often take with them later in life and do the also common volcano experiment when they're in grade 3 or 4. Now, if we can add to this a little bit of dish soap, let's just have a little bit of fun. Now that we're into it here, you know, let's just add a little bit and then see if I might have pushed a little bit too much in there. And then see what happens now. Oh, I just need a little bit more. Is this vinegar or water?
That's vinegar, I think.
No, it's water.
Oh,
well,
we have so much vinegar. Don't worry. We
Okay.
have lots. If we could just pour some here. This is half the fun of experiments. And now we get something totally different again.
yes.
And because we added the soap, we now have bubbles, and they can reach in and they can feel the texture, and you can actually feel the grittiness of the baking soda in their hands and the soap. And this is very, very fun experiment. And you can see how children are engaged. Why are you enjoying this? Why am I enjoying this? Well, that's another question. But I don't know if I shared with you, but I actually have a chemistry degree. So you can understand why I think this is all just so jazzy. But so that is working with baking soda. And the next one I'm pretty excited about sharing with you. We've already talked about all that. I don't need to. So this one I really want to talk about is the sense of smell. And I want all of you who came with us to take the cinnamon that we gave you, and I just want you to close your eyes, and I just want you to smell the cinnamon. So here it is right here. Just take it and put it up to your nose and smell it. And then I want you to think about what comes to mind when you smell the cinnamon. I think that when we smell things, the memories that flood back to us, and when we think about how that memory got into our brains, was also, it went in because it was associated with one of our senses. And so when I smell cinnamon, I think of my grandmother, I think of baking cookies, I think of Christmas. I asked this question earlier knowing that we were going to do this today, and someone said to me they think of apple crisp and cold winter afternoons with their family. And I think for all of us, when we smell something that's common like that, our memories flood back to us. And what it does is it reaffirms for us how our senses embed memories into our brain. And I share that last one with you because I want you to understand that how memories and thoughts get into our brains is through our senses. And I think this one is really is very powerful in the example of how it gets in. So the next thing I'm going to show you is oops, I went too fast. Dale's cone of learning. So I see and I forget, I hear and I remember, I do and I understand. We probably have all heard this before. It's from Confucius. But what it really says is, when I engage my senses, I remember. So after 2 weeks, take a look at this. After 2 weeks of being exposed to something, so let's say I read something, I remember 10% of what I read. If I hear it, and see it, now I get to 30%. So sometimes we can take a look at those, and that's really sort of how our educational system works, right? You know, our teacher, we are going to read it, we might hear it, we might see it, and so we're retaining 30%. Watch a movie, look at an exhibit, watch a demonstration, see someone do it, watch an experiment being done. We remember 50% of what the information was. Participate in doing the act. Now you get to add the vinegar. Now you get to add the baking soda. You get to add the soap. You're remembering 70% of what was said to you now. Now you do the experiment. You show me how to do it. You give the experiment to the children and they're teaching you. They will remember 90% of what was said and what they did. And this is how we want to engage our children. We don't want to be the ones who are just doing all the experiments. We want them to do it. And not only do we want them to do it, we want them to teach us how to do it. Because it is when they are teaching us or their friends, or they're engaging in self-directed play and discovery-based play, and they are doing the discovery, they will remember 90% of what they learned. And this is what we really want you to grasp from today, is that when you are engaging your senses, you will retain what it is that you learned. We talked a little bit about Confucius, and we actually have here, I don't know if we can flip back to the, Katie, can we flip back to the overhead screen? Here I have put in, do you have the cornstarch there? We just put in cornstarch and water, and look at, I just want you to see this. So if you've never, you probably have done this before and ruined your gravy before. but here is just the plain cornstarch. And this is really a great one for the babies. They just have cornstarch to play with in a tray. You can see that if you have young children, just give them the cornstarch in a tray, let them move it around. It's silky, it's smooth, it gives them a different texture and feeling. But when you add water to cornstarch, you can get, let's just give that, it starts to get hard. Look at this. I have to really pull it apart. But how is that possible that this is what happens? And as children are able to experiment and discover how products change and how they look together. So this is a really great one for babies. I would limit the amount of water that you add, and or you should add lots, sorry, and then so that they're able to be pliable. But just put them on the tray as you see there. And so for babies, just to be able to play with the milky water, or even just to play with the cornstarch that is available for them, is an amazing opportunity for them to just experience the silkiness of the cornstarch. And so we just wanted to show you something that if you are really young ones, that you might want to be able to try with them. I see and I forget. I hear and I remember. I do and I understand. Touch, taste, smell. So, oops, I lost control there, guys. Sorry about that. So these are the things that we want to remember with our children. I see and I forget. Sight. We have so much stimulus coming into our brains through our vision. I hear and I remember. I see it and I hear it. It's twofold, not just one. I do, and then I will therefore understand. And it is in the doing through discovery-based and experiential play that children will retain the information that is brought to them. Sometimes we don't understand the building blocks. Children don't learn in incremental blocks like this. Sometimes the learning appears to be small, and then sometimes it's in a great big leap. Children go in great big leaps of learning, and sometimes in small incremental amounts. But it is in doing that the children will be retaining the vast majority of their learning. Okay, let's just talk about, do you agree that sensory experiences increase learning retention? Give us a poll. We're just going to do this one really quickly, so please just chime in when you can. I'm trying to get the cornstarch off my hands. Jen, how are we doing for time?
We're doing okay. We've got 5 minutes left to 9. But we're going to, so stay with us, everybody. We will go a little farther for question and answers. So we don't want to rush, Julie. I know we're getting a lot out of this. Now for the poll, Julie, do you agree that sensory experiences increase learning retention? 100% said yes.
Great. I think that we made some great impact here. In-home sensory play for young children. When you're at home, the pictures on the left show you that it is possible to have sensory play at home. Put out a tray of water, add some ice. Put out some flour or some cornstarch on a sheet, a cookie sheet. If you have a large bucket and you have a younger child, put the child inside that. Bring in some snow from outside. It doesn't even matter if it's winter. They think you brought in magic, that there's snow inside the house. Young babies, add water to a Ziploc bag and put it in front of them and let them squish it. Put a few flat pebbles or flowers or something flat inside and let them watch it move around. It's really, really great. And you can do that yourself at home. Sensory play for older children, try freezing things in the freezer, for example, colored ice cubes, and tell them that they're frozen dinosaur eggs. Play balloons, just blow up a balloon and throw it back and forth. or get a helium balloon and watch that rise up and then knock it down. Beach play, go to the beach, play in the sand. It's amazing for older children. Fluffy slime is amazing. Come into Scholar's Choice. We have so many types of compounds that would just mesmerize your children for hours. I'm not kidding. It is amazing. I have some on my desk. I'm playing with it constantly. It is phenomenal for all of us. The sensory play is tremendous. And so I use it thinking that therefore I'm learning better while I'm playing with it. And I'm sticking to that story. Bubbles in the bathtub, blow bubbles. Nothing's going to happen. There's not going to be a big mess. It's all water. You're in the bathtub. Take bubbles outside for sensory play. It's amazing. Actually, this week, Grant from our marketing department created a magnificent bubble wand. So check that out on our blog this week. It's really, really, really good. Or come on into the store and make one with us. Digging from worms is amazing sensory play. Putting the worms on the children's hands and letting them, crawl along, or hold a frog in your hand and let them pop off back into the pond. These are amazing opportunities for children. Go and collect tadpoles and watch them swim and touch them and let them crawl onto your hand or swim through your hands. Amazing sensory play for older children. There's just a link here, but don't worry about trying to write it down. It's 20 ideas for fun, sensory play. We are going to send that to you afterwards for each and every one of you. And I think I have 1 minute to spare. So our next webinar is Tuesday, June 25th. And we're going to be talking about taking learning and play outdoors. I think it's going to be really fun. I've started working on this next webinar and I'm really, really excited about it. I think I'm going to challenge us to try and actually be outdoors for our next webinar. Katie's looking at me with great big wide eyes, and but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So please mark it down in your calendar and join us. We've been getting a lot of interest in our webinars, and we're hearing from a lot of ECEs. If you are an ECE, don't forget to let us know, and we'll send you a certificate of training from tonight. Congratulations to all of you who joined tonight, who took your own personal time to participate. I hope you had a lot of fun. Sorry that it went long. The experiments are just so much fun and really make a difference. So Jen, come on over. Let's do some draws. And for the people who are participated this evening, we have a winner, Haley.
Congratulations, Haley. Okay, Julie, why don't you tell them a little bit about this container here? I know everyone can see this container.
Oh, well. Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes to just guess while I read the next name. Tricia Van Gotch. And it is actually a habitat. And so it is a habitat for butterflies. And when we talk about sensory play, one of the most magnificent opportunities that you can give your children is to come on into Scholar's Choice and pick up some larvae. And what you do is you put them inside here, and we have all the directions on how to keep them healthy and how to make them survive. And they actually, the larva grows, and then they go into the chrysalis phase, and then they come out, and they actually are butterflies. And your children can witness this in their very own home. And Rena, who works with us here, she did the most magnificent chart. So let us know if you want to see the chart that she made, and we can send you that photo too. But it is amazing. She did the chart for her child to learn while they were watching this all happen. So, kudos to Rena. It was amazing. And so think about this. Where can they go and take a look at the butterflies? Up on the blog or?
Yep, on the blog and on our website.
Could we send them a link to that when we send them the email? Okay, we'll do that.
Absolutely.
We'll do that tonight. Jen.
Congratulations, Haley.
Deborah Greenway.
Deborah.
How many am I supposed to draw?
5. So 5. We have 3 so far, Julie.
5. Soraya Vanaski and Crystal Britch.
Congratulations, everybody.
So we have some questions. I know we're going over time. I'm happy to stay, but Jen, do you want to chair? Are you okay?
Nope, I'm okay. Everyone can hear me. Okay, before we start, Julie, can you tell us a little bit more about the conference and that you talked about at the beginning.
Oh, I was at the MCCAA. Is that the conference I was talking about at the beginning?
Yes.
We were in Manitoba, and Scholar's Choice, we were there, and we were presenting. We were presenting on classroom setup and how important it is, the environment for which children are learning in order to support discovery-based play, provocations, and oh, do I have? Oh my God.
Julie's having so much fun.
Oh my goodness, I've got stuff all over my face. Come on in and join me, Jen.
Oh my gosh.
She probably put that on my face.
So fun. Okay, so we're gonna go up here to ask you some questions. Okay. The first one here is from Deborah. My 11-year-old grandson used to really like this sort of play, but is less enthusiastic now. Any suggestions for 11-year-old?
Yes, when we did that experiment and he was able to see the bubbling up when we
That's
added the
right.
vinegar to the baking soda, he's looking for more dramatic action out of this type of play. So think about a science kit, think about a microscope for him. These are all great sensory plays as well. And even a telescope would be awesome for him. So think about these things, but come on in, get a science kit, and let's take him on the adventure, because chemistry is truly, firsthand speaking here, amazing.
That's right. Okay, Sandra asks, my daughter is 13 months old. I've been trying out a few sensory bins for her. She starts off almost seeming like she's being aggressive with the materials. Then she tries to get it all emptied out of the bin. I know she does end up enjoying herself, but I'm curious if this aggressiveness is a normal behavior. And then the second question is, do you have any suggestions on how to get her to play with it in the bin instead of being so determined on emptying the bin entirely?
You know, Jen and I both working with early years.
I'm like,
that's pretty much how the play goes. But you know, what you could do is limit the amount. So if you just don't put a lot in, there's not a lot to empty. She's working on lots of things right now at 11 months old. So one of the schemas that she's working on is transference, put it on the floor, put it back in, put it on the floor, put it back in. And that's tremendous play too. And don't ever think that play is diminished in any way because she's not leaving it in the bin.
And Julie, what does schema mean? For
Schema
those
is
that
how
may
we
not
learn,
know that.
how we are learning, the process of which we take in information and make sense of it.
Okay. So Julie Grant says, how can you do sensory with a large group? Where can they all go to participate at that same time? I have a large sensory bin, but it doesn't necessarily hold all of the kids at one time.
Well, Julie, one of the things that I really like to do is to set up different sensory stations. So you could have your sensory bin, and then you could have something else set up, let's say in your STEAM area of your classroom, and have some other activities. So you might have some slime over there. Here you might have some water. Setting up another bin that might have twigs in it, pine cones that they're mixing and matching. Try setting up multiple areas of sensory, and don't get focused on that it has to be in your sensory bin.
Right. Awesome. Megan asks, how do you feel when the school uses iPads for young children? So we're going back to screen time, 4 years old.
Yes. Well, you know, I think that there is really amazing programming. And I think that you know, at 4, there can be some tremendous programs that are designed for children. I think we have to look at the quality of the programming that we're exposing the children to, whether it's on an iPad, a learning opportunity. But remember, it can never be a substitute for other traditional forms of learning. So
That's
as an addition to it, yes. As a substitute, no.
Yeah, great points. Asks, what do you do for little ones exploring sensory bins that want to put everything in their mouth?
Well, I would make sure that in my sensory bin, everything can go in their mouth. And that's what you need to do. So if the child is young and they're still mouthing everything, remember that that when we put things in our mouths and we're little, it is how we process. Our senses aren't as developed. So our mouths are how we process information, that sense of taste. So they're just learning. So when you see a child put something in their mouth, they're not hungry, they're not trying to be naughty. They're just trying to process information. So just make sure that what's in the bin is able to go in their mouth, and you're good. And this too will pass, and you'll be able to move on to other types of sensory bins.
Excellent. Catherine asks, what do you do when a toddler seems to be in sensory overload, such as a first time to the zoo?
Well, the first time to the zoo has so much going on. All of the people, all the sounds, all the smells, all the animals. And it is, I think I might have mentioned in this, is I would keep myself very, very calm and make sure that my voice stays quiet, so that the child needs to stay quiet in order to hear me. I would certainly limit all sugar foods and make sure that I don't partake in food that is in any way going to stimulate this further. And also I would make sure that there was lots of sleep. So I would take them first thing in the morning, right after nap time, and don't try and make the zoo for a toddler a whole day thing, unless you're going to be prepared for them to nap in their stroller, which is great too.
Right.
Which is great too, but you might need to take them away under a tree in a quiet time to get them to do that.
Crystal asks, Julie, do you have any suggestions for infants for sensory play? Crystal works for a group that is 0 to 18 months.
Well, I mentioned that I really like the Ziploc bag. As the children get older, you're going to need to make sure that you tape that Ziploc bag shut, because they're going to be able to open it. But putting different things in there, especially if, for example, we're going to talk about mini beasts, and I'm going to put some plastic bugs in there and they can feel and touch and see them, but we're not having water. So they're able to touch and feel them. They're not going in their mouth. Really, really young ones, bigger bags that I might be able to do. Also, what's coming, and we haven't got it quite in yet, but we've got these sensory tiles that are coming, and they're about 2 by 2, and you could put an infant on them and they can touch them, and they could be blue, and as the child touches them, the water inside the tile moves away from them. It's going to be phenomenal. Phenomenal. And you can get all sorts of colors. So that would be a good thing for your center as well to think about. And then I also really, really still do like the small little sensory bins. We've got ones that sit almost right on the floor, and the children can crawl up, and just even putting some diggers in there and a little bit of dirt. You could put pom-poms in there, like big ones that they're not putting in their mouths, like big balls. We have some great sensory balls, and each one has a different texture. I think these are some great ideas. But for more ideas, give us an email and we'll be happy to give you a whole slew of ideas for sensory play for little ones.
Yeah. And Julie mentioned music as well. And you know, Julie, you didn't get a chance to see, but on the group chat, they were talking about Mud Day, and that this center was just looking forward to this one particular day, because even the infants in their center participate. And my encouragement, just on the side, is why wait for just that one day?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, why wait for, like, they were so excited, they had so much fun, and I was like, why don't you do that a little more often than once a year?
Yes.
Like we would be.
Well, you would be, your children would be home dirty from me every day.
Right. And you know, communicate with your families. Like, let them know, like, once a week, we're going to do this.
Well, you know what else we carry are the one-piece suits.
Good
so
point.
If you've got families that like that, think about this. We sell them to centers, and so every child has it. Zips right up to here, snaps over, goes right to their wrists, right to their ankles.
Problem solved.
Put on a pair of wellies and send them outside, and when they go home, they're perfectly clean.
There you go. We are solving all the world's issues tonight. Okay, Charlotte, what to do with a child that likes to eat sensory items in the bin? And we talked about that. We did.
And you know what? It's perfectly natural. And, you know, we need to celebrate their experiment and what they're doing, and talk to them about, wow, how does that taste? We just need to, you know, just make sure that we're not dealing with choking hazards, and keep supporting them with great big pieces in their sensory bin.
Okay, Charlotte asks, Julie, do you have any ideas on being more environmentally friendly when we do experiments and sensory play? at her particular center, she uses a lot of natural materials. However, she's wanting to find some alternatives for some other sensory experiences.
Well, Charlotte, I'm not so sure that I truly understand what it is, and I apologize. I'm sure it's just the late hour for me, but give us an email.
Yes.
and tell us, sort of what you're doing and where you want to go, and let me respond to that offline for you, because I think that there's just so much that you can do out there. And one of the other things I really like with the experiments is giving a collection of a whole bunch of things, and then talking about sorting and giving them bins to sort themselves out with. And another sensory one that I just recently saw, which I really liked, I wish I could take credit for it, is that they put magnets out, and they put a sign that said, can you find the magnetic material? It didn't matter if the children were able to read. You could certainly read it to them. And they had all kinds. So they had wood, and then they had mag formers that look like plastic, but there's magnetic material inside. And so the children were able to take this magnet and put it over top of the materials. Amazing. What a great sensory experience for them. They were able to determine polarity. When pieces pushed away, they could take the magnets and see if they could push with the magnets instead of pull. So that was really a fun one too. So I hope that kind of gives you some ideas, Charlotte, but just send us an email and we'll work out some more for you.
Okay, we have another question here. It says, in terms of senses, my toddler gets scared with loud noises. So any loud noise, like people clapping at a party, the vacuum, the beach. What advice do you have, Julie, because this person doesn't want to scare the child, but they also want them to enjoy things that maybe a little more noisy. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that that's not an uncommon reaction for a young child to be afraid of loud noises. I think that when they're able to create the loud noises, I think that that's a great place for them to start. So giving them a drum, giving them loud musical instruments to bang, which is great sensory play. And we didn't even talk about that tonight, is musical instruments, magnificent sensory play. Giving these to your child and letting them make some loud noises. They might be by nature a quiet person, and by encouraging them to make loud noises, start off with quiet music, turn it up a little bit more, have some dance parties in the house. That's always great, because you know what, in our own home with our children, we are all magnificent dancers, and at a center with our children there, we're even better dancers. But turn it up a little bit more all the time, and see if while he's grooving and jiving, that he's feeling more comfortable with the loud noises.
Okay. That's excellent advice. Margaret has one last question. She says, how do you address rules? Are there any rules for safety when playing with any of the sensory, sand or water?
I think the biggest rule for me is not too much water. I really want to keep the water limited, very, very little water. We don't ever want a child to spill over into that, and for us to ever have a child aspire water. So it's really important that we limit the water. When I say lots of water, I mean lots of water in lots of places.
Right.
We don't need tons of water.
Quantity.
It's not about quantity, especially for our little ones. Preschoolers, I like deeper water in smaller containers. I love making soups. I love, ladling, pouring, mixing. These are all magnificent sensory experiences. But make sure that you limit the water. I think that that's important. Something like baking soda, cornstarch, these are, if consumed, are fine. Children have eaten lots of things, and they always will. Another really fun one is spaghetti.
Yes.
So at home, sticky spaghetti. I mean, if they eat it, it's all good. It's all fine. But just putting it out there for them to play with is really fun too. It's really, really fun.
Okay.
So how are we doing?
We have another question here. Any gluten-free sensory ideas? So again, we're talking about food here.
Thanks, Emily. That's a great question. There is gluten-free Play-Doh that you can access and get. We carry it as well, so just give us a holler. I think that if you work with products that are, if you have a gluten allergy, lots of water play, the vinegar is not going to be a problem. you know, staying away from experiments that include flour for gluten intolerant children. And if you go online and you look for, you know, experiments for gluten-free, I bet you they just flood in like there's no tomorrow. But great question, because you're absolutely right.
Yes.
You know, children can have that gluten allergy. So thanks so much for mentioning that.
Okay, so that's it for our questions, and we are, again, you know what, good timing. We went over 15 minutes, but you know what, thank you for staying with us. Julie, again, sincere thank you. We just have so much gratitude. You just wait till you see the feedback. Everybody, thank you for your engagement and expressing how much you're getting out of this, and for the ideas for the future webinars. Julie will be holding these in the future to the end of the month. So every Tuesday at the end of the month. So please be looking for that. The next one, you know, Julie already has come up with outside, which is perfect timing for the summer months. So we'll be getting out. So Julie, any last words before we sign off?
Thank you so much again, and congratulate yourself for participating in these webinars and for being so engaged and interested in your children's learning. I congratulate you. Thank you so much for joining us at Scholar's Choice, and we're here to support you. Mm-hmm. Come on out to the stores, visit us. For the centers, we're developing an awesome new childcare section so that you can see products that are relevant. Mm-hmm. And parents, this is a place for you too. So come on out, check it out. Come online and look at the magnificent materials. It's really important for all of us to understand that all toys are not the same, and the toys you choose really matter. So thanks again for helping us support our vision of helping your children achieve their hopes and dreams. Good night.
Good night.